Well, thank you all for joining us today. And I just really want to welcome you all and to thank you profusely for taking the time out of your busy schedules for really participating in the World Creativity and Innovation Week and Day as part of the United Nations International Day of Observation, April 21st. It's so exciting to have you with us here, talking about walking together and your journey into the sort of the world and, as you say, the woods of improvisation. And it's really exciting to have you share your story with us. So thank you for being here. Michael?
Thank you very much, Goran. I'm Michael Wilson, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Canadian Network for Imagination and Creativity. And we are a cross-Canada network of volunteers interested in the entire process of play, imagination, creativity, and innovation. And we're very happy on behalf of Scenic to be part of this World Celebrations of Creativity and Innovation. And it's a wonderful opportunity for us to feel the sense of total internationality in the concept of creativity across the globe. And it's a great instrument for peace. And it's a wonderful way to be attached and representative of the UNESCO Day. We have three people here with us who have been involved in a very interesting improvisational project. Three people who actually represent the vast corners of the country, from British Columbia to Nova Scotia to New Brunswick, and of course, Goran from Toronto, and I'm from Ottawa. So why don't we begin by introducing the three people who are with us at the center of this improvisational adventure. And so, Ming-Yu, I'll start with you.
Hi, from the west side. Hi, I'm Ming-Yu Lin. I'm a PhD candidate in arts education at Simon Fraser University in Vancouver. I'm a pianist, a piano teacher, and my research is to embed the philosophy of improvisation into classical piano training to explore improvisation and find the connections between these two music genres.
Mm.
Thank you.
So it's my turn?
Your turn.
Good. Okay, my name is Charles Pan. My Mandarin name is Yazhou Pan, which means Noah's Ark. So it's very few the name in Mandarin actually from Bible, because my grandma gave me this name, and probably I can survive in any difficult situation.
So truly an internationalist.
Yes, it is. So I am also a PhD student in art education with Mary Blatherwick in UNB. So now I'm currently I'm living in New Brunswick. So I used to be a reporter and media guy in my home country. So I graduated as a concert piano as well, like Ming-Yu. So this is my first major as a pianist. Then I went to a journalism program to do my master degree. Then I working in the media industry for 18 years. So almost all my career background is media broadcasting and also event hosting, something like that. So when I came to Canada, I studied film and new media in Ontario. Then I came to New Brunswick, continue my PhD study here. Yeah. So my thesis will be how the art education can reduce the cultural barriers in underage international students. My focusing group will be just Chinese international students under 18 years old. Yeah.
Wow.
It's amazing. Hi, everyone. My name is Alexis Milligan. I am the East Coast representative, other than Charles in New Brunswick. So I, although hilariously, I'm actually working in Niagara-on-the-Lake right now at the Shaw Festival. So my background is dance. I came through a formal training in dance in Halifax and went on to train in Toronto. But then I switched over to classical theater. And so my background is fully in the performing arts. I also have worked in puppetry, directing, performance, acting, all of it. But I actually hold a master's in interdisciplinary studies, which I recently completed, which was an investigation into the idea of whole person communication and how the performing arts really is a starting point for communication that can transcend, much like what Charles is exploring, culture, language barriers, that art really is an entry point and is a first literacy in communication. And so the idea that the performing arts can play a role in that the body and the physical form plays such an important role on how we perceive each other and understand each other and are able to come together in groups. That sort of the focus is how the physical form relates to communication and the development of the concept that I've been creating called speaking in silence. But improvisation has been a part of my world from the time I was a small child, and throughout my professional dance and theater work, improvisation has been at the heart and the center of all of it, because I feel that it's where I feel the most free. So it's been quite a fortunate thing to cross paths with my two colleagues here that I've been learning from and working with for the last 2 years.
Wow,
Well,
this
that's
is
wonderful. Thank you very much for the
amazing.
three of us being with us. And before we enter into a reflective dialogue about what the three of you have accomplished, let's have a look at a little bit of the resulting work the three of you have done together.
Okay, I'll share the screen now. I have a video that Charles shot last year for our performance, which was happening in the conference. Share screen. Okay, let's start. okay,
Wow.
Is that wonderful?
what we
So amazing.
like a performance and involving audience. It's a,
Yeah.
like an interactive and collaborative improvisation with images, with people, with music, with movement.
It's just incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And thank you, Michael, for prompting that because, as someone that works with innovators and that, trains people, I'm part of the organization that trains people in innovation skills and facilitation and so on. One of the most sought after abilities is not just really learning, say, innovation methods or facilitation methods, but really being able to kind of improvise through those methods. And what we're finding is that improvisation is in fact quite challenging, in fact, to teach, at least in our experience. And so it's such a pleasure for us to have such talent here with us speaking today, because obviously, you have a deep appreciation and a deep ability to explore improvisation, to share with our listeners and viewers, which I think is so relevant. It's so important. So there could be so many questions, really, I think, to start a conversation, but maybe one of them is really just perhaps to tell us a little bit about your project around this improvisation. What led to this exploration as the three of you kind of coagulated, got together to sort of work on this topic?
Maybe I'll jump in because it actually started in 2022. It was last April. Everything was still, things weren't really happening in person. And part of the WCIW week last year, we did an event with the Scenic group, and we just had a couple of speakers. The videos are on the Scenic website, but it was called Limitless, and we named the event Limitless. And for that, Ming-Yu and I we'd been chatting about improv, and Ming-Yu's background in piano, and then my background in dance and theater in terms of improvisation. And I thought, I wonder if I was to improvise movement, would Ming-Yu be able to play in over Zoom? Could we do this over Zoom? So if I was to dance, if I was to do some improvised movement, could she improvise with the piano in Vancouver and I was in Nova Scotia? And we did that. Now, this then got tied into Charles. And the way Charles got looped into this was he was working on a video of Mary Blatherwick's paintings. So Mary does these beautiful, wide landscape pieces, horizons, large canvases. And she'd had an exhibition. Charles was starting to work with her as the PhD student, and she asked Charles to go down, and using his amazing film abilities, went down and did a video, like a trailer of all of her pieces. But because it's Charles, he did like close-ups and pulls out and zooms. He did this amazing footage he took. And so I asked if it would be possible for him to put together a short video of edited clips of the whole gallery exhibit that he had filmed, to put together a short piece about 4 minutes, but that Ming-Yu and I wouldn't see it. So he created the video. We didn't see it. He sent it to me. I put it as my background on Zoom that you can do. We split the screen between Ming-Yu and I moved to Ming-Yu's music, and Ming-Yu could see the paintings and my movement behind me. So it was like suddenly we were creating an improvisational piece over Zoom, which who knew that was possible. And then we had a conference coming up. There was a conference coming up in October, and we wanted to know, could we do it in person? What would be different if we did it in person?
Wow, just amazing. And Charles and Ming-Yu, how did you experience that? This wonderful journey that Alexis just talked about. What were your kind of entry points into this?
Okay, so actually, at the very beginning, it's quite a challenging for me because usually, the video and make a short clip and a short little footage combined together, it takes a little quite time, right? So usually if we do the traditional way. So, but because Alex and Ming-Yu give me some inspiration, so I'm thinking today is video actually like using phone and using very simple equipment and to create a very quick video become more and more important. Today's young, especially for young generations, they create the video on TikTok or whatever, so they on the social media everywhere, so people quite familiar with the video creating, right? So that's why I'm thinking it's a good idea and to quickly respond different and creates a dialogue between different art forms. So that's why and I use Mary's painting. This is one an art piece, then trying to imagine how the painting, the visual arts elements could be also become a dialogue, a language, and to fits the music language, you know, like a rhythm, right? Like a color, and also the movement, and fits the dance. So that's why I create the clip first, then trying to using this clip and co-working with Ming-Yu's music and Alexis dance. It actually turns very well. So the in the Ottawa, that piece is it is two pieces. The first piece is I have to prepare those images first. As you see in the video, we can see a lot of like trees, leaves, and the ocean and sky. Those parts I did it in advance and before Ming played the music and also before Alex danced, right? So, but they didn't see these images before. So in the conference, I played those beautiful scene and images, then they immediately creates by what they see. So when they see the ocean, they make some reaction. So then Ming-Yu and see the images, then create some music. And also they invited the people in the scene, so to create this together. So gradually people join us and they create together to record, to make a reaction with those images. And this is one part. Then the second part is, in the same time, I also need to take in the clip immediately together. So when they dance, I need to take in the video. So after they finish the performance, I need immediately to make a social media like a clip, like you see just now. So I need to immediately to create another version of the conversation. This is now become from audience, from two artists, and from the image. So those four different perspectives, we put them together and make a short video like this. So quite interesting. So it happens in minutes, right?
It's amazing. It's amazing. And it seems so fearless and so responsive, this creative process. In itself, it feels fairly improvisational. Before I move to the next question, and I pass to my esteemed colleague, Michael, who's a performance artist and improvisational master himself. Ming-Yu, maybe you could also just briefly reflect on sort of your reflections on this process around improvisation.
Yeah, sure. I was a classically trained pianist, so doing improvisation was very difficult for me in the beginning. So in the early phase of improvisation, I always practice in my own practice room. You know, I only need to face myself, face my mind, listen to myself, and then I taught students to improvise. But the performance we did in last April, right, online was my first experience improvising with other people and before the audience. And that was a very profound experience because that was the real practice that I have to feel my fear. all the judgment in my mind. And I have to accept everything happened there will be recorded and last forever.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah, that was kind of terrifying.
I can totally understand because I also are classic piano students. So what we learn in a conservatory school is exactly to play the right notes on the paper, music sheets.
Yes.
We cannot make any mistake.
Yeah. So before that practice, I know I have techniques, I have knowledge, but I also have fear. I also have judgment. I also have presuppositions and many restrictions in my mind. And all of these issues stop me from improvisation freely. So that was my starting point of starting improvisation. And the conference in Ottawa, what we did in Ottawa is an even real practice. That for me, because it's in person.
So
and the audience are free to join us. So I didn't know what would happen before it happened, and I have to accept it and play with all of those.
So the three of you have one thing in common, and that is that all of you are very experienced in your particular craft. You're a classically trained concert pianist. Charles, so are you. But your art form we're talking about here isn't music so much as it is cinematography. Yeah. And Alexis, you similarly have enormous formal training in dance and theater. So, and Ming-Yu, you just mentioned this a moment ago, part of improvisation is fear. And you have to get over that fear. And I'm wondering if the central issue about fear for someone who is classically trained is knowing whether or not the next note you play or the next move you make, Alexis, or in your case, Charles, because you were filming this in live time, the editing came later, right? But Charles, for you too, how do you know what shot to take? Because you hadn't seen this before, that you were seeing this for the first time. So how do you know the next note that you play or the next move you make, Alexis, is in fact the right note or the right move? Coming from a background of such formality of the issues of right and wrong being very, very clear. So how do you overcome that and decide whether that note you played, Ming-Yu, or that move you made, Alexis, or that camera angle you used at the time, Charles, was the correct one? How do you know that?
Yeah.
I find that it's so interesting when we start thinking about transcending language, and that I feel like a different kind of talking happens. It's a different way of communicating, and suddenly we are communicating with all our senses. We're not communicating with words. The conference, our event was called Movement, Sound, and Image, because if you think of the 5 modes, which is words, numbers, movement, sound, and image, we have a lot of focus in our education and in our media worlds. It really does focus primarily on words and numbers, but movement, sound, and image are they have equal value in terms of their role in communication as the first 2. But we don't think about that in terms of abilities or training or awareness. And I really feel like we existed in those 3 worlds. We were in movement, we were in sound, and that was through image. But it's a matter of that embracing the fear. It gives you get to give over to a different way of communication. Like you just get to work with people and talk to each other in a different way is what I think. Because yes. I feel like Ming-Yu and Charles and I, we don't know each other in terms of hanging out. We don't get to see each other. We don't do dinner parties. We don't go to movies. We don't get to have coffee together because we live in all parts of the country. But we can get into a room together for the first time and completely exist on the same thinking plane or experiential plane.
Yeah, so the astonishing part is that you're not a working group that tours the country. You don't know each other. So in actual effect, you're strangers to each other on in normal parlance, because you've met each other once, really, at the Ottawa conference.
Yeah.
So how do you, I think what you're talking about here is that you somehow enter a new form of communicating with each other, which is neither dance music or talking or anything else. It's something else that's going on. Could you go so far as to say that it's a special language that only the three of you can create between each other? And also complicated by the fact that you invited other people to come and take part in the dance moves as well, right? During the conference itself. So they took part in the conversation to some extent as well. But at least the three of you were communicating with each other in a language that we cannot delineate, we can't describe. It's unique to the three of you. Is that right?
Yeah.
I think you need to trust the flow. Since we're creating without oral communication, so we're creating the other kind of flow. And if you prepare to accept everything in that flow, you can write on the flow. I think it's the same happening on the audience. If they trust, if they can feel it, listening to it, they just can write on the flow immediately.
Sometimes the language of arts can jump. It's very flexible. So in my mind, it's very interesting language. For example, I always talk to my student before. It's interesting thing is, for example, I am a music student at the very beginning, right? So at that time, we actually don't know German, Italian. We don't know those languages, but we do watch opera. How can we understand that? Right. So this is, we can say at least, oh, they also have language. Okay, probably. So there are something we can understand from those language. But what if we listen to the concert? This is just music, no language, but still we can understand what happened, what kind of movements, what kind of emotion, what kind of like a philosophy behind the music. So I believe in every different arts, behind that is kind of a new system of language. Those languages makes us very flexibly and very deeply can understand each other. So when I taking the clip for Ming-Yu and also for Alexis, especially for Alexis when she's dancing, so it's kind of like I do want to understand what she gonna do later. So I can follow her movements, but then also I create a new language based on her language. And this language also transfer to the audience. Today, for example, when you watch the movie, it doesn't matter. My language, my meaning is exactly like you feel. It doesn't matter. For example, like when Alexis dance, and probably she thought, oh, this is ocean, but it doesn't matter if I thought it is a sky. It doesn't matter, because the language of arts is very flexible and also very so interesting. We understand each other, not exactly has to be it is ocean, it is tree. So we understand to understand what behind this, like emotion, like our feeling. So it's harder to using text-based language to describe this. But anyway, I believe everyone, that's why art education is so important. I believe also for the kids, for the young kids, they can quite easily understand the culture behind the arts. That's why when we go to any other country, the first place we always go to museum, go to gallery, go to the art form to look at their arts, and it will give us very quick and a secret way and door to open that different culture. That's really interesting. Yeah. So for me, I just follow them. I don't know if I did right or not, but I never asked them. Even I give them the clip, I never asked them, did I do right? And Alexis, I just believe I'm right. Then she says, "Oh, it's amazing." So then I'm feeling it's good.
Yep. Yep. I think that's it. I think it's that thing of, just constantly being aware of each other and finding and making those connections, and those connections building into a new idea and responding to each other. And I think that the one thing that I have loved about working with both Ming-Yu and Charles is this phrase, well, why don't we try it? Let's just try it. Let's just do it. Let's go for it. Why not? Like, let's talk less and get in there and figure it out by doing. And so once we get into it, we start to go, oh, you know what? Oh, and then it would, and those ideas start to come. But to just jump over a little bit about the fact that we do have people who join us. In October, the invitation was, we will do a small little start, kind of a warm up, but who is in the room that wants to come up? And you would get some people kind of coming up going, oh, this is so cool, some people went right to Ming-Yu to actually play the piano. Some people were really interested in following Charles and actually standing behind him, looking at the frames he was catching. And then some people wanted to come up and do the movement. And even those that were sort of tentative to start with, what was so interesting is once they got into it, they forgot themselves. So they were afraid. They didn't want to do it. I'm going to totally throw our other colleague, Jillian, right under the bus right now, because she came in and she was like, I'm not going up. Like, she's like, I don't dance. And she walked up and I was just like, you and me, let's just do a duet, whatever, who cares, right? And we went up and all of a sudden, like, this gorgeous movement starts coming out of Jillian, like, and we were just like, what? Like, where was this hiding? And she just said, it's fear. It's just, she's afraid. And as soon as she had the chance and feeling like she was in a safe environment where she could experiment, play, try something new, encounter that fear with colleagues, that she actually could let it go and kind of enter into that world. And that was a really interesting moment.
So is there an important element of trust in all this you need to develop? And it's a bit like you're throwing out all the rules. So what rules are there? Are there other rules than just trust?
It is. I believe it is some rules in a general way in arts. Whatever it is, dance or it is music and it is video. So we all like follow the rhythm, the movements, and color changing, and also for example, like when Alexis dance, and when she did a very slow motion, then I'm assuming she's gonna do a little quick movement. So this actually also happened in music and in filmmaking. So in this part, we do have some same philosophy or same idea of arts. So this is also like a skill, this kind of skill, and make us can easily conversation together without language. Because fortunately, three of us are all very well trained, classically trained artists before.
Okay, before I share my thoughts, can I share some pictures? I have some pictures here. These are from our playground we set for, after our formal session. Okay, this is the first one. So these beautiful pictures, yeah, was from the playground, because in the conference program we committed to offering a playground for all of the attendees to engage freely after our formal sessions. And I remember the conference staff sent some high school students, actually they were volunteers, into a playground. And so we explained the ideas and invited them to play. But in the beginning, they are all quiet. And after a couple of minutes of hesitating, one of them stood up, walked to the screen, and asked Alexis what to do. So it just happened so naturally that Alexis and the young man you saw in the picture slowly walked toward each other from two sides of the screen and started to move, to dance and play with the shadows and colors. And when I was playing the music, trying to catch up their movements, a girl came to me and asked if she could join me on the piano. I did not say anything and I did not stop, but I just moved to a lower register and passed her the higher register on the keyboard. So we just started to play together. And then later another girl came to here, and I just naturally retreated to give them the whole music part. So everything happened naturally, and that was why I had time to take those beautiful pictures. As I watched all of this happening from the audience position, I was stunned by these young people's fearlessness and freedom. I can see they jumped, they turned, they crouched and stretched, and they reached their arms to the falling leaves and to catch the ocean waves. They showed pure enjoyment at the moment, and I thought in my head, wow, this is my dream playground. This is what I want. So, and I was also very proud that we created a friendly and welcoming room for them. I think that is very important because we usually hear people say, oh, you must be brave to create, or you can just release your imagination, but there must be something before becoming brave to create or being able to release your imagination, right? So what is before creating? Right? So sometimes when I work with my piano students, I found they may need us to acknowledge their vulnerabilities, to hold their fear, to show them what they could do to listen to their needs, or to arrange the space for their freedom, to prepare for them. And when they receive permission and trust, they will have courage to experiment, to use their knowledge, or to release their imagination, because they know they are allowed to try. And what they create will be accepted and appreciated. So this is what I learned from our playground.
So was the whole experience one of freedom? Did you think that for the three of you, but also for the other people you got involved, that ultimately for all of them and for the three of you, the whole experience was a very freeing, very liberating experience? Could you use those words to describe that?
I think it's very complicated. I think for me, I could feel freedom, but at the same time, I may feel fear, anxiety, unsure in mind. But it's also kind of freedom for me to face all of those emotional reaction or the feelings. And I know someone will accept all of my feelings at that moment.
It's quite challenging, yes. And I'm pretty sure all the, especially for for a well-trained artist, probably do this kind of performance will be a little anxious, and it is kind of fear, because we know what is the highest standard is, but sometimes we also need something very freedom. So it is kind of like two sides. For example, like when we teach our students, of course, if they want to get very high standard and they want to do very, very well, very good performance, they need to do very strict training, but also they also need something in the other side. I need them become very vivid, become very brave. They can also become very, they be able to imagine everything. So this kind of two sides actually needs to be combined together. So in our education process, usually we do this strict side too much and we ignore that side. So that's why I think this kind of the event, or this kind of this project is really important, inspired me a lot, because it's a balance. For me, it's a balance. Sometimes we need to do very strict training, and sometimes we need to break that rules, especially in art education. It's quite difficult, but it is necessary, and I think it's very important, actually. Yeah.
And I think that it's rather than sort of feeling that it's freeing, it's almost that it becomes afterwards, there's a real reflection in it. There's a real moment of coming to an awareness of, I didn't know I could do that. One of the things that came out, especially with the students, and then the day before we had, like Ming-Yu was saying, we opened a playground for all the conference attendees. There were some people there who were in their older years, and you could suddenly see them, their bodies were moving in doing things and creating shapes and, turning around and upside down in ways that they would never find in a regular day. I mean, all they were doing was following the images. They were being inspired. Something was coming out of them. They were inspired by the music. And it was like their body took over. So at the end of it, some of the students were going, I didn't think I could do that. I didn't know that was possible. And so it becomes very reflective. It becomes very, you really sort of take something away, in a sense that it's not just, oh, I was just free and I got to do whatever I wanted. It's actually about trying to find synchronicity in an asynchronous environment, where we're all in these different mediums, but we're trying to find this way of coming together. And so you end up coming into a way of being that you forget yourself. You even forget that you're in the room. You're so immersed inside your imagination and your surrounding, your atmosphere, and your perception of yourself in this environment has shifted. You've gone someplace else. You are in a different world. And to have that moment is, yes, freeing, but it's really surprising, if anything, I think.
Wow, that's just incredible. If I might just briefly jump in with a reflection here, I mean, it's just so amazing hearing the several invitations really that you're sharing with us here that seem so relevant, to innovation and collaboration, really at the kind of international scale, because as we attempt, to encounter, and we really must kind of encounter and engage the challenges that are so relevant today, from the climate crisis to everything else, we're increasingly, as groups and organizations and institutions are encountering these situations where there's uncertainty, sometimes profound uncertainty. And going back to what you sort of talked about, Charles, in a way, we have all, in some sense, kind of grown up in the conservatory. We're expected to play the right notes, and we're not expected to to make mistakes, you know, and as we're dealing with these environments of profound uncertainty, it's almost as if we're inviting ourselves to kind of find that same courage, that same improvisational freedom that, you know, the three of you found, and that sense of reflexivity that you talk about, Alexis, that and also the kind of courage that you mentioned, Ming-Yu, to kind of proceed despite a little bit of fear, because sometimes these situations are not necessarily comfortable in every moment, and to still produce the beautiful performance out of it. I feel like, you know, there are so many lessons for us as innovators and collaborators to learn from, as you said, Charles, really from the artistic practice and from the creative practice. And that kind of takes me to my question. You've spoken, I think, about this very eloquently. Is there anything else you would like to mention about this role of creativity and imagination in the process of improvisation beyond what you've already so beautifully described?
Well, then, certainly on behalf of the Canadian Network for Imagination and Creativity, I'd like to just take this moment to thank three of our most important steering committee members for being here this afternoon. Ming-Yu Lin, Charles Pan, and Alexis Milligan. Thank you so much for being here and expressing such profound thoughts and ideas that resonate around the concept of improvisation.
Thank you,
And
Michael.
indeed,
Go.
yes, and indeed, on behalf of the World Creativity and Innovation Week and Day, we really want to thank you profusely for taking the time to share these wonderful experiences that are, as I mentioned, just such fantastic invitations and that open these questions for us to consider, I think, far past this conversation. So we look forward to enjoying your work, and I think many of us will be thinking what you shared. On behalf of the World Creativity and Innovation Week and Day, thank you so much for participating. It was wonderful.
Thank you.